Dehydrated. Hello and welcome back. Here is another installment. I know, how many have I done? And this one was actually filmed on a different day. Not only that, I do have a little bit of makeup on today. I have a little bit of mascara and a tiny little wash of, what's that word? Eyeshadow. I want to be honest because, as I said in one of my other videos, I'm showing you my natural skin. But I don't have any foundation on, but I do have a little bit of something on my eyes because it was out earlier today. And I thought, you know, I want to look half decent. I want to look quite nice. Anyway, this video is going to be specifically about active ingredients. I am still going to do videos individually about each aspect of actives, but this one is going to be specifically about layering and mixing and what can you put together. This is going to be a little bit wishy-washy. Are my videos anything else? Again, always go and research, always go and double check. Don't just take what I'm saying as the be all and end all, and if I'm saying anything that you think is absolute nonsense, please comment below and let me know. I am not shy in learning, please let me know. Anyway, if that sounds like the kind of thing you want to know about, what to mix together, what absolutely not to mix together, and what to put where when, then please keep watching. So as I have said in all the other videos in this little series, we are bombarded. We are told a million and one things, and especially in this day and age where we hear all these really fancy scientific terminologies and words. So you hear about hyaluronic acid, you hear about niacinamide, you hear about vitamin C, you hear about retinol, you hear about glycolic acids, etc, etc, etc. The terminology of active ingredients basically just means the active ingredient or the thing that's supposed to do the job inside of a product. So therefore, if you pick up a moisturizer and it says it is enriched with hyaluronic acid, then that is its active ingredient. And that's when you should be checking the back of your packet to double check kind of, well, where is that active ingredient? Obviously, we have seen a rise and rise of these skincare brands that are simplifying all of this for us. The Ordinary are probably one of the ones I knew about first. I have been using them probably for coming up on 3 years, I want to say, maybe 3 years this autumn. And I still stand by a lot of the products that they produce. We have also seen kind of the Inkey List up and coming, and Boots, the ingredients, I've talked about that one, the vitamin C one. They are very much, you can tell they've kind of duped the Ordinary. They can tell this is a trend and they've come out with their own range as well. But each and every one is ever so slightly different, and each and every brand will have people who really like the products and ones that they don't like so much. For me personally, the vitamin C that comes from the Inkey List is not for me, but the Inkey List do other things that I really, really enjoy. The same goes for the Ordinary. I don't really like many of the moisturizers from the Ordinary. I don't really like their cleanser either, but I really, really enjoy a lot of their active ingredients. Their kind of retinols, their serums, their hydrators, things like that. So I thought I would just go into kind of the basics on layering and mixing and what you should and shouldn't mix together. And this is not an exhaustive list. It's far too broad a subject for me to try and do that. But what I'm going to start off with saying for a basic is you should always go kind of thinnest to thickest. Getting naughty now. Basically, you should always start off by giving your face a wash. You should always start with a cleanser. Now, there are some disputes whether or not you should wash your face twice a day, or you should just do it when you're washing your makeup off. I've seen lots of things to argue the pros of this argument and the cons of this argument. Personally, I do still wash my face twice a day. I wash it in the morning when I get up, I have a skincare routine then, and then I wash it before I go to my bed at night. If I have makeup on, even today with the very little bit that I have on, I will use a cleansing balm. I have a massive video on cleansing balms and I've just bought another one. When will I learn? But you can go and see that over here if you want to know about cleansing balms. I'm not going to get into that on this. But if I've got makeup on, I will use a cleansing balm and I will then use a gentle cleanser. Reason being because the cleansing balm is usually something of an emollient, oily substance. So as much as you try to wash your face of that, you might find you have residue on your skin. Some people might really enjoy that because they've got very dry skin. But I feel if I'm going to then go on to put active ingredients on top of my skin, it might not penetrate through that. So I like to follow up with a very gentle cleanser. You've probably seen me speak about CeraVe all the time. I have also spoke about the Glossier Milky Jelly Cleanser. Just a simple cleanser. It doesn't need to be one I said. It can be whatever you like. You may like a foaming cleanser. You may like a cleanser that is purely an oil cleanser. It's completely up to you which one you use, but I'm explaining why I use what I use. I then go on to come back here and sit at this space, and I use a spray. Sorry, trying to get that without turning around. This is a thermal spray. I have said on my IGTV before as well that you can use bottled water that you filled at the tap if you really want. I just use this for ease. It's a lot easier to have it at the dressing table here. Take it out and I go spritz. Just soaked myself there, but you know. The reason being, my first step after that will normally be a humectant. Humectants are what we would more commonly known as hyaluronic acid or a glycerin, something like that. So what they do is hold water, hold moisture, and they can hold something like 1,000 times their weight or 10 times their weight. So if you've got one drop of, this is very basic, it's not scientific, it's not perfect, but I'm just giving you it in layman's terms with no disrespect, but we like speaking in normal terminology here. So if you've got one drop of hyaluronic acid, that will be able to hold something like 100 times or 100 drops of water. Do you see what I mean? It holds water. But the important thing to remember about humectants is they are only really working if they have moisture available to them. So if you live somewhere like a desert, a very arid and dry heat, you might find that what hyaluronic does if it sits on top of your skin is actually draw moisture from the inside out. We don't really want that to be happening. You want it to be able to kind of sit on the skin and go in and penetrate the skin. As I said, I'm kind of getting a bit in depth about hyaluronic acid now. Let's not get into that. We'll have that in another video. But that would be my first step, would be my humectant. Spray my face, my humectant. From there, I leave space. This is really important, but also I completely understand that a lot of people will be like, I don't have fucking time to do that. I've got, you know, 3 kids to get up and dressed in the morning. I do not have 2 hours to do a skincare routine like you see all these celebrities doing or all these influencers doing on Instagram. You know, put this on, wait 15 minutes, put something else on. A lot of people are like, that is just not plausible in my life. For that reason, what I would say is, I personally get up a little earlier to do some of my steps. That's my choice. But if you find that you have not got enough space in between, because I think people would say leave about half an hour in between each product. That's quite tricky. I don't think even I could do that. But at your best, try to leave it 10 to 20 minutes. What my suggestion would be is if you get up in the morning, wash your face, blah, 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 come out the shower, blah, blah, blah. And that would be my first step, as I've just explained. I then go on to brush out my hair, get the tangles out my hair if I've washed it that morning. Or I would go on to dry my hair if that was kind of, think about those things. If you have other things to do in that time, do you need to go and get dressed? Do you need to go and sort your lunchbox? Do you need to go and give the kids breakfast? If there are other things that you're needing to do throughout the morning, come out your shower, do that as your first step, move on to something else, and then pop back in when you've got another minute to do your next step. Again, personally, my next step would be then an active ingredient, such as a peptide or niacinamide, something like that. The reason I put them on next is just because it works in my skincare routine. You could put on a vitamin C at this point as well. It doesn't have to be a peptide or a niacinamide. You could technically put on something like a lactic acid if you really wanted, but I prefer to leave things like acid and exfoliation until nighttime. But it's not for everybody, and you have to think about, as I said at the start of this in the intro video, what works for your skincare. As I was saying, you need to make sure you're going thin to thick. There is no point in putting on your moisturiser and then doing your eye serum last, because the eye serum is not going to penetrate through that really thick, heavy moisturiser. Maybe use an oil at the end. Again, the same goes. The only thing I would say, which I was relatively surprised when I looked into this a little bit further, was you actually could put an oil on pre-moisturiser. That was news to me. I had no idea. So if you done your washing your face, your humectants, your hydrators type thing, you then went on to put on some serums, whether that's peptide, whether that is another hydrating serum of a sort, whether it's an anti-aging serum, whatever it is you want to use, you do that. You could actually, or your eye serums, stuff like that, You could actually put on an oil next and then put on moisturiser if you felt you needed super duper moisturisation. This was really odd to me, and I still sometimes go between the two. I think the reason being that it is still a thinner product, but I would think that oil and water, like, they won't penetrate. So if you then use a moisturiser with hyaluronic acid in it or other good things in it, how does it penetrate through the oil? But some people it seems to work for them. So as I said, you got to like work out your own skincare routine. I generally don't use an oil during the day, again, but in the evenings I quite like it for facial massage. So in the evening, if I'm doing these steps, I do tend to put an oil on at that stage and go away and have a little gua sha, little jade roller facial massage. And then it's probably a good hour to 2 hours later, just before I go to bed, when I'm putting a moisturiser on. And at that point, it's probably soaked really well into the skin and it's held all those active ingredients that you put on underneath it to do their job. So what is the difference between mixing and layering? Layering is very much what I have just explained to you. Taking the time and taking the time to give each step a chance to work. Mixing actually involves using 2 products in the palm of your hand at one time. There are certain products that you can do this with, and it would take me forever and a day to tell you what those all are. As a general rule of thumb, vitamin C and sunscreen work quite well, but be very careful if you're going to add anything to your sunscreen, because you do not want to lessen the strength. We've been through this, we know about sunscreen, but you don't want to weaken that, you don't want to dilute that down. So just make sure you know what you're doing. Now, I believe that the magnesium ascorbate, I think I'm saying that right, from The Ordinary mixes really well with their own sunscreens. They have advised that, and it works really well together because it is an antioxidant, trying to make sure that free radicals and all that kind of stuff aren't going to become like causing age issues or sun damage or pigmentation. We will get into this, I promise you. Vitamin C, antioxidants, it's coming. But they work quite well together. There are products that can do that. I tend to mix the niacinamide and the buffet in my hand together and use them at the same time. There's not really any obvious contraindications for that. You may have heard that niacinamide and vitamin C are not friends and cannot be mixed together. That really is down to old studies that shown that potentially it could actually cause a chemical reaction, damage on the skin. But actually newer studies have shown that a lot of the newer formulas which niacinamide and vitamin C are made in, it would take very specific settings, very specific temperatures and laboratory kind of setting situation for those chemical reactions to actually occur. So most things that you're using that have niacinamide or vitamin C in them today probably can be mixed. There is chat as well that maybe it makes the vitamin C not as active as it should be, but again, these are all a little vague. I personally do not mix the two because it doesn't work in my skincare regime. The vitamin C that I use, the ascorbic powder from The Ordinary, and the niacinamide, actually says on The Ordinary website that you shouldn't mix those two together. They kind of go into a little bit of chat about how it could be damaging, but the long and short of it is that if you mix these two things together, it ends up like glue on your hands. It's not very nice. Actually, I'll just show you what it ends up like. So you can see it does that kind of balling thing. If you've ever put on, I don't know, an oil or a moisturiser, if you've ever layered skincare and then all of a sudden you've got big like globules that's like almost like PVA glue, it's not very nice, it's not enjoyable. So it's nothing to do with I am worried about putting niacinamide and the vitamin C together because they are going to cause my skin damage as such. I thought it was Sean Connery there, so I did. It's more to do with the fact that it's just not an enjoyable experience, and that's why I don't mix those two together. If you are unsure about mixing, what I would say is stick to layering. Just layer your products slowly, give it a bit of time, especially if you are going to mix things like a vitamin C and an oil, because I find, especially with vitamin C, that is something that can ball up on your skin very easily. Also, probably think about what is your skin like. If you have overly oily, sebaceous skin, then you might apply a vitamin C that actually reacts with the oils on your own skin and then can cause balling. Again, this is very hit or miss. You have to just work this out for yourself. Unfortunately, I can't give you the be all and end all on how it works. The same with dry skin. If you've got dry skin, areas of exfoliation and what have you, and you've done an exfoliating treatment and then you go on to put something else on, you might find there are bits of dead skin and you'll be like, oh, this is a rotten product. It might not be that. It might just be the fact that you've kind of mixed the wrong things together, or these products just don't play very nicely together. Now, just quickly, I would like to add in here about the packaging of active ingredients. It's probably one of the most important things. I actually was asked a couple of weeks ago by a friend in work who sent me a link and said, what do you think to this vitamin C? I've seen it and I think it looks really, really good. What do you think to this retinol? Blah, blah, blah. And she sent me a link to this like bargain sale that was going on, something that should have cost 70 quid, which you could get for 24.99. And I was like, all right, okay. I said, I don't know the brand. I'm not even going to mention it on here because I don't know who they were. I don't know what it's like. I've never tried it, but on the surface of it, what I'm going to say to you is that retinol is in a clear bottle. That vitamin C is in a clear bottle. So vitamin C and retinol specifically, not just them, is again not exhaustive here, but those two things generally need to be kept out of sunlight because they degrade in sunlight, they oxidize in sunlight, and they become less efficient in sunlight. They don't do the job as well as they should. And if the vitamin C is oxidizing, then actually it can make you look a little bit like you've got fake tan on, the wrong color as well, which is great. But they won't do the job they're supposed to. So there's really no point. You buy a product in a clear bottle like that the product needs to be kept out of kind of the air, the oxygen and the sunlight, then you may as well just throw your money in the fire. Again, it's like adding the two things that are different pHs together. Although I know that people might argue with me on that point, but mixing pHs just cancels them out. We've already discussed this, there is a video up here. But it's kind of similar to that. It's just a waste of money. If you're buying products that claim to be all singing, all dancing, great active ingredients, then the company should at least put them in a protective container for you to keep them. The other thing is, obviously these things will go off over time. I have said a million times on this channel, if something is a lipstick and it still smells okay, still tastes okay, goes on okay, I will continue to use it even if it says use it within 6 months. That is my prerogative, that is my choice, this is my face. But things like skincare, sun cream especially, another video, you need to stick to the use by dates and the sell by dates. I'm a little bit easy breezy bendy on moisturisers. I kind of don't mind them so much, but things like vitamin C's and retinols, alpha-arbutin and alpha-lipoic acid, things like that, if you don't use them within the time, they will go off and either it's just not going to work or it's not going to be very nice on your face. You'll get a bit of a reaction. So try and stick to them as best you can. Another little thing that I'm going to add in at the end here is toners. Now, a toner is something that should actually be like an equilibrium, like equal out your skin. It's supposed to bring it back to its pH of 5.5. So we see things like the Glycolic Toner from The Ordinary, which is an exfoliating toner, but it's a glycolic acid. And I have said on many a time, like if I've used the glycolic acid, I might feel I don't need to use the lactic acid in the same night. It doesn't mean to say those two things cannot be mixed. You just have to be wary of over exfoliation then leading to pigmentation and damage on the skin. I have always found my skin is quite tolerant. My skin, if I put on the glycolic toner and then go on to put on an acid or something like that, it's been okay. But I wouldn't do it too often. I don't use acids every single week. I don't use my glycolic toner every single day. But there will be people who buy, let's even say the Pixie one, the Pixie Glow Tonic, and use it every single day and swear by it and love it. That is completely up to them, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's what you want to do. Other toners, however, you have the retinol one from Pixie and the rose one, and I'm sure there's a vitamin C one now as well. They all do slightly different things, but essentially what a toner should do is equal out your skin. So by using the Glycolic Toner, what you're trying to do is just give a mini exfoliation to bring it back to that natural 5.5 before you start applying anything else on top. For that reason, it works quite well with the likes of the hyaluronic acids. That reason, it works quite well with the peptides. You wouldn't find that there would be too much interaction going on if you use these things together. Vitamin C as well. And obviously vitamin C can be quite harsh at times. So again, depends on the strength of vitamin C you're using, depends on the makeup of that vitamin C. Because I use the powder one, generally what I will do is actually mix that with a hyaluronic toner or some kind of humectant. The powder, I will mix that in my hand and then put that on my face rather than mixing it with a glycolic toner, because that would just nip. That would be very, very stingy on the skin. And I have kind of in the past maybe been like, it's good if it nips, feels like it's working, but in hindsight, that's probably not the best advice to give. If something is really burning and stinging on your face, wash it off. Maybe even put a little bit of bicarbonate soda to try and neutralize that effect on your face if it happens. So anyway, I think that's it for this basics of active ingredients. I'm not sure there's much else I want to add here, but as I say, I will be going into more in-depth chats about each of the products. So with all that being said, I hope this was useful. If there's anything you want to ask me, please comment below. If there's anything I've said that you disagree with or you found new information on, please hit me up, send me a DM, comment below, do whatever you like. Otherwise, like, subscribe, you'll get all the rest of the chat, more on this series soon, blah blah blah, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.